Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie. That's Dave at Corporal Eddie, and we are here at the DFS Den to get you where you need to be for Sunday's main slate. And can you believe it? We're already into week 5 already. It's happened so fast. It seems like we just sat down to talk
Yeah.
about week 1, to talk about the preseason, but no, week 5 is already kicked off. It kicked off on Thursday, and here we are on Saturday morning to bring you the best advice that we know how to, with all our pens, all our pieces of paper, everything we need to do. I have the Detroit Red Wings hat on because hockey season is back. The MLB playoffs have already started. I know we got some big games coming up on today, actually, Saturday. So there's a lot going down in terms of DFS, and you can go to the Discord here at fantasy6pack.net, and you could talk anything until your heart's content. But this video is for strictly football and the main slate. Dave, how are we doing? How was last week? Did you win anything? What was your week like? How did it go, man?
Well, I mean, I hate to start on a sour note, but I know you agree. Transparency is everything, right? Last week was the first time that we did not have a cash sweep, so didn't win everything, but was ever so slightly profitable. I don't have the right up now, but I think it was like a 6% ROI. It wasn't much, but I'll always say you can't go broke making a profit. So we
No
don't
doubt.
have, we don't have 4 consecutive cash sweeps, but we do have 4 consecutive profitable weeks.
Correct.
So
And I do want to say this. There's one thing that's stuck in my mind all week for some odd reason. Just one of those odd things. Last Sunday when we were live and we're talking
mhm.
and we're going in bed, you mentioned Nick Westbrook Kane from
Oh
Tennessee,
yeah,
and
touchdown.
he went nuts, and he was as cheap as it gets. He was
hmm
in bottom of the barrel. You
Yeah,
mentioned him live on air, and he went nuts. So I applaud you for that one. So we're here to essentially do that again, and then we're going to get to do it again Sunday live at noon. So
absolutely.
make sure on Sunday morning, just stick with Fantasy Six Pack, because I believe they start broadcasting at around 10:30
Yeah,
Eastern
like 10
time,
30.
and then Dave and I will take you home leading up to 1 p.m. lock time when we look at football. And as you said before we started to broadcast here, we're in week 5 now. We have some legit data. We have some
Yeah.
legit numbers that we can toss around in our favor, in terms of talking DVP and this team versus that team, this player versus that player, and ownership percentages and snap percentages, and in terms of backfield and routes ran and all that stuff. So we're going to start to get into, I didn't want to have to use the word nitty gritty because it sounds corny, and it's too early in the season to say nitty gritty. But week 5 to me is where the action starts. Like, weeks 1 through 4 are fun and they're special, and you'll get a guy that wins $1 million just making a lineup. He has no clue what he's doing. But now this is where the preparation will really carry us over into some big time winnings, and that's what we're going to do here until the season is over, all the way up to the Super Bowl. We haven't talked about this, Dave, but I plan on writing, broadcasting, recording, doing everything I can leading up to the Super Bowl. So we have a
Yeah.
long ways to go in terms of you and I getting together and doing this thing. So enough with that being said. It's like when I sit down and record my single game slate videos. Before I know it, it's 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes into the video, and I haven't really said anything worth a damn. So before we get into our favorite quarterback plays for week 5, I will do the promo really quick. Just go over to fantasy6pack.net. You can actually look at all the different, the process and programs that they have. And the cheapest one is $9.99 a month, and you get all access. And to be fair, I'm on Discord. You're on Discord more than anybody I know, but Discord to me is the best way to get a hold of us or anybody else here, any of the other professionals here at Fantasy Six Pack. If you want rankings, if you want redraft stuff, dynasty trade questions, DFS stuff, betting stuff, the Fantasy Six Pack Discord is where you're going to want to be. And you can get in. There's some free channels there, but for just $9.99 a month, you can get a ton of extra stuff. And again, that subscription is nothing. We spend $10 every morning on a coffee or a pack of cigarettes or whatever you're into. So spending $10 here at Fantasy Six Pack it's got to be done. It's got to be had. So let's talk about quarterbacks, Dave. And again, there are starting to get bye weeks are starting to happen now. So we're going to need fill-ins and stuff. But again, in DFS, that doesn't affect us. Bye weeks, I welcome bye weeks because then we can get some extra players in and we can get those second stringers and things along those lines. So I'm going to toss it to you. I want to talk about quarterbacks. And first, let me just say this, Patrick Mahomes right now, he is the most expensive quarterback on all formats, and it's Patrick Mahomes against Minnesota. Minnesota's 22nd overall against opposing quarterbacks. I think Kansas City absolutely steamrolls them. So for you in a cash game, I would like to imagine that's where you're going to start. If not, I look foolish, but let hit me. Who are some of your cash quarterbacks you are just over the moon for in week 5, Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times, early in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, I usually am pretty locked in at quarterback. This week, I am still kind of undecided. I'm going to give you 4 names that I think are all, cash viable. 3 of which I'm honestly still debating on what I want to do. And you nailed the first one, of course, Patrick Mahomes, right? I don't think I really need to go into too much detail about why you play Patrick Mahomes. But, one thing that I will say, and I'm going to sound like a broken record on this one, over the next however long we're talking about this. But, there's 2 games that absolutely stand out to me above the rest this week. And that's KC, Minnesota, right? Obviously. And then the Rams and the Eagles. So we're going to be, I'm going to be, hitting on that a lot. I do want to give you a fun fact, though, about Patrick Mahomes. His 154 yards rushing are actually second in the NFL so far this year. So kind of interesting, right? Other guy that is kind of the pay-up quarterback for me, Jalen Hurts, right? Like, again, forgive me, I'm going to basically repeat myself here, but do I need to give you a reason, to play Jalen Hurts? Again, quarterback in, the other standout game here. Fun fact about Jalen Hurts, he's 4th in quarterback rushing yards with 134. So, 2 of the top 4 rushing quarterbacks so far is what I've mentioned. Another guy that I'll talk about, and, I've been kind of leaning into him here lately, but he's getting priced up a little bit, but that's, AR-15, that's Anthony Richardson. Gone, unfortunately, now are the days of, playing, I'll call him the cheat code at a cheap price. But, he's really more than earned that price tag, this week. Kind of going to be, hard to click on whenever, he is priced up. And for a little bit more, you can play Mahomes or you can play Hurts. But he's playing Tennessee. We talked last week, about, the Bengals and, how much, we were liking that because Tennessee is one of the ultimate, funnels. They're so good against the run that it's easy to pass against them. So, now Anthony Richardson, a guy known for his legs, is going to get a very soft, the softest passing matchup he's going to get all year. So it's almost to some extent unfortunate that we have the riches at quarterback that we do this week because Richardson, is a fine play. And then last guy I want to talk about, and he actually didn't make my list here until today. And now I'm finding it really easy to click on him for the savings. And that's, our boy Matthew Stafford, former, Detroit Lion, of course. Like I said, I was really kind of debating between Mahomes and Hurts. Oddly enough, the little bit of savings that you get from Hurts over Mahomes was actually making a difference in my lineup, which was making it, a little more difficult. And now we throw in, Stafford here, who is the equivalent of my pay down option of the week. Surprised it or not, he's second in the league right now in passing yards, 1,229, and Cooper Kupp hasn't even seen the field yet, right? Now we think Cooper Kupp is probably back this week. Is he going to be limited? Is he not going to be limited? I don't know, but this Philadelphia defense has been, kind of like, Tennessee. They're a pass funnel. They're so good against the run that they've been giving up yards through the air. So, you've got a good quarterback with probably a full complement of weapons. Don't be surprised if I throw, a Matthew Stafford Lions jersey on and, put him in my cash lineup, Chris.
Yeah, and run with it. And to be fair, Matthew Stafford is highlighted in bottom of the barrel, and it was just an easy move. It's like, like you said last week, sometimes your cash pool just like kind of writes itself.
Yeah.
Same thing with bottom of the barrel. Certain positions, certain players, it just they write themselves. And when you look at Stafford, as you said, Philly 24th overall against opposing quarterbacks, and look out, Stafford is gaining confidence. And he's, maybe he's feeling a little bit better now. He is an older man. What is he, 33, 34? He's won a Super Bowl. We know all that about Matthew Stafford.
35, almost 36.
And to be fair, I know you will agree with this comment, but I have nothing but love for Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly. They have been nothing short of phenomenal in terms of what they've done and what they continue to do here in the city of Detroit. And they live in LA now. But when we get to the quarterbacks that I'm into here, I wanted to start off with Daniel Jones, right? And the Giants, they go to Miami, but to me, they're just something. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that's just telling me no Daniel Jones this week. So I'm going to be off Daniel Jones, and it stinks because Miami, they're 29th overall against opposing quarterbacks, but we know Miami can score points in droves. They put up 70 points, and I hate to keep harping on that, but 70 points is a ton. That's a lot of points in an NFL game. So Daniel Jones to me is off my board. He's off my player pool. When we go down, Jared Goff is another guy that I was interested in. And when you look at Detroit's at home against Carolina, Jared Goff and the Lions team in general, to me, and I don't want to sound like some egotistical hipster, like, well, the Lions are good now and they're not going to have to do much to beat Carolina, but it's true. Carolina hasn't won a game, but again, anything can happen on a Sunday. But I still like Jared Goff in a way, right? And Jared Goff, to me, when you look at him on FanDuel, he's 7,400 in comparison to Mahomes, who's 9.2. I think Jared Goff is able to throw 2 touchdown passes and hang 210 yards, and then that's it. I could see a case where Jared Goff doesn't even play in the fourth quarter, kind of thing, and to be fair,
hopefully.
That would mean that they're up big. But again, Dan Campbell doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to give it. If they're playing, they're playing. Dan Campbell's going to want his guys in the game. And as we move down the list, CJ Stroud, I absolutely love this kid this week. Houston is playing in Atlanta. I wrote that is one of my favorite games this week. Why? Because I'm a GPP freak. I'm a nasty game kind of slappy. I love those kind of games.
You found one.
I love the Jets at Denver, this week, and we'll get to that one. But CJ Stroud to me, 7-2 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's only $6,000. When you look at Atlanta, they're 16th overall against opposing quarterbacks. CJ Stroud is fastly coming into his own. I look at CJ Stroud and he is improving game to game. And it's not major leaps. It's not like he's making these major leaps game to game, but you can clearly see that CJ Stroud is finally, figuring it out on the NFL level. And to me in Atlanta, I could see CJ Stroud throwing for 2 touchdowns, running one in, and at his price tag, I absolutely love it. Then we go down, there's Matthew Stafford, but the next guy I have highlighted here is Zach Wilson. The Jets are playing in Denver. Denver's dead last against opposing quarterbacks. And again, Zach Wilson, we've laughed at this kid for weeks, for months, for like a year or two now. But when when they played Kansas City, that was Sunday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Collinsworth, I'm not a big Collinsworth fan, but he does make sense. He played in the league. He knows what he's talking about, but it's just the way in which he says things. But to me, granted, the Jets lost. They played Kansas City. That was to be expected. But what was not to be expected was that the Jets were going to hang in this game. In my single game DFS video, I told the story backwards. I started the video with the final score. Who does that? You give the final score. People are like, all right, I got the final score. I told that story backwards, and I was completely wrong. And again, Zach Wilson is not suddenly the stud, the second pick, the stud that we were all promised to be, but he did make some progress in that game, and you can clearly see it, in his footwork and the way he moved around the field, the way you could tell with his helmet was moving. He was actually going through progressions and making reads and making good decisions. And when you look at Denver up next, if Zach Wilson is to take the next step, it would be this week against Denver, and he's only 6'7" on FanDuel, only 4'9" excuse me, on DraftKings. And to me, Zach Wilson could honestly throw for 2 touchdowns and then find the end zone again on the ground. So in my perfect world, Zach Wilson could be accountable for 3 touchdowns this week. And that, to me, given his price tag and given the matchup, Zach Wilson could be one of those quarterbacks that breaks the slate. I mean, the simple, I don't know what other way to say it. And one more guy I'll give you, and I have a few of them here, Bailey Zappi. I think that the Mac Jones needs to go. Bailey, that was bad news. I have Joe Burrow here. They're playing in Arizona, but Joe Burrow is just, what the heck is going on in Cincinnati? I actually saved it. It had to be fake, but it said that Jamar Chase is requesting a trade. He's fed up about it. It has to be fake. But when you look at that, it brings me to Joshua Dobbs. Arizona's playing Cincinnati. That's my third and final game that I love this week. Dobbs is playing Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 20th overall against defending opposing quarterbacks, and as it stands right now, it's one of those things where I've said it before. It's not about Joshua Dobbs to me, and you're like, well, what is it about? It's about the turmoil that's going on in Cincinnati. What's wrong? What is broken? Is it his calf? The big plays for Cincinnati just aren't there. So to me, I think Joshua Dobbs and Arizona in general can take advantage of that. And when you look at Dobbs, he's 5'2" on DraftKings, 6'6" on FanDuel. Joshua Dobbs has done a damn good job, running this offense, and you love those yards with his legs. Those add up quick. And I'm not saying Arizona is going to beat Cincinnati or Cincinnati is going to beat Arizona. And if you looked at this thing before the season started, you'd look at this and go, Cincinnati's going to just absolutely blow out Arizona. That's not the case in week 5. So give me Joshua Dobbs for at least 2 touchdowns, one in the air, one on the ground, any way you slice it. So to me, Dave, it's all about CJ Stroud, Zach Wilson, and Josh Dobbs for me. And in a GPP multi-entry world, I think that's a pretty good head start at 3 quarterbacks we can use if we're going to play in, GPPs and all that. And when we get to running backs here, we'll transition there. I'll give you the most expensive guy, and then I'll let you give me your cash pool here. But King Henry is back on top, rightfully so, at least on FanDuel, as the most expensive running back. And that's only because Christian McCaffrey doesn't play on the main slate, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look at
he does not.
Yeah, yes. San Francisco plays, let me look at this thing.
Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas. Yeah, they play Sunday night. So CMC's not on the main slate, or he would be by far and away the most expensive running back. But Derrick Henry, Tennessee's playing the Colts. He's going to run all over him. He's $9,000 on FanDuel, 7.5 on DraftKings, and in bottom of the barrel. I mentioned him again just to give you to show you the high price guy in comparison to who I like. We're going to have a vintage Derrick Henry game in this one. 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, and that's the way I see it. So when you look at running backs from a cash perspective, where are you going this week, Dave?
It starts with Bijan Robinson. I think he is the stud running back that's available this week. Just continues to see his opportunity share grow each week. And I mean, it wasn't bad to begin with, but it's just getting a little bit better, little bit better, little bit better. And I think that, and I know you're on this game, but I think that the game environment does leave something to be desired. But it's going to be pretty hard for me to not have Bijan in my cash lineups. This one's a little bit hard, but I mean, Joe Mixon is another guy that he just keeps finding his way into these lineups for me. On paper, it feels like an easy play. Like if you haven't been around for the first 4 weeks, Joe Mixon against with this matchup here at his price is like, oh God, well yeah, give me some Joe Mixon. But it's just so hard to trust any Cincinnati players right now. With Burrow's injury, they've been just putrid on offense. But now we got, bye weeks kicking in, like you said earlier. So we have less options. So, more guys kind of come into play that make you a little bit uncomfortable. And Mixon is kind of one of those guys for me. We're going from 12 or 13 games down to 10. So you're taking 4-6 running backs, right out of the pool. So we're going to have a more condensed player pool. People are going to be more on the same type of plays. I think that kind of, lessens the overall advantage that you have. I always feel like, the bigger the slate, the bigger the advantage can be, right? So I think that, just a lot of things are pushing Mixon into my direction, but it's a scary one to play, in my opinion. David Montgomery, I think, especially in, GPPs and stuff, I think it's David Montgomery chalk week. Absolutely dominated the backfield so far this year for a Detroit team that is, just super run heavy. The role that we've seen from him this year is pretty much exactly what you want to see from a cash running back, high volume. You'd like to see him a little bit more in the passing game, but that's kind of nitpicking things a little bit. And he's scoring lots of touchdowns. He's not crazy expensive. I think that he is a guy that a lot of people are going to slam into, cash lineups. Isaiah Pacheco, he's a guy that we just saw have a pretty big game. I do want you to do me a favor, though, Chris, real quick. I need you to shut your eyes. Okay, close your eyes.
Sure.
And I want you to visualize what I'm going to be saying here. You ready? Okay, so you're in the prison yard. Okay, you've got a guy who sees the pod boss out in the middle of the yard, right? So he's keystering a shank right now, and he's running out to attack the pod boss, okay? That's the way that Isaiah Pacheco runs. However, he plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you remember, I had mentioned above, there's 2 standout games for me on this slate. He is the running back on one of them. So I think we need to be responsible, but find ways to, access this game. Now, Pacheco is a very easy way to do that. If you decide not to pay up for Mahomes, I don't know that it necessarily makes the most sense to play Mahomes and Pacheco together. I wouldn't fight you on it, but I won't. So my lineup is probably going to have one of Mahomes or Pacheco. And then a name that I didn't expect to necessarily talk about this week, but now I'm excited to do so, Breece Hall. Robert Saleh has told reporters that they are not limiting his workload any longer. Now, that's not a rumor. That's not hearsay. That he said that publicly out loud for everyone to hear. So
straight from his mouth to you,
exactly.
Straight from his mouth to our ears. No coach speak bullshit. He said it.
Nope, he said it. So that could mean incredible things, right? It also could not. So hashtag analysis on that one, right? It could be great or it could not. But, at the same time, like that price, it's just so tantalizing. He's so cheap, especially for his role. So, early in the week, he kind of had my curiosity, but now he has my attention, Chris. I probably need to see Hall, do it, one time, before I'm comfortable sliding him into cash. I think MME, he's a no-brain, easy guy to play. Cash, a little more risk adverse, but he's a guy that I think has to very much be on your radar. Another guy needs to be on the radar, but we have to see. This is a to be determined. But Jaleel McLaughlin, it really comes down to Javonte Williams in this particular case, right? If Javonte is active, even in a limited fashion, I think that we can forget about McLaughlin. If Javonte is inactive, though, I think that he would. We've seen it looks like he would lead the backfield over Samaje Perine. Though again, that's not a slam dunk. So there's still risk to be had. I probably won't get there in cash, but I think that if everything falls correctly, I think he is cash viable, and you could go that route. And then it might be time for me to play DeAndre Swift. Maybe because I'm a Lions fan and I have seen how fragile he can be, makes it really hard for me to, trust him. But he has been so good so far this season. And he plays in one of those aforementioned standout games. So he's a guy that I find myself having an easy time clicking, but it still scares me, Chris.
Yeah, and every running back you mentioned, I have a, I could have said something back because I write down what you say. That's no secret. And I was on a broadcast earlier today where I had to give, some player props, right? And the first one, I want to go back to David Montgomery. Him scoring one, you can get him in a parlay scoring one touchdown is minus 135. But if he scores two touchdowns, you can get that for 310. I think that's a sure thing. Two touchdowns, plus 310. When you look at Isaiah
Or on the
Pacheco,
Lions money line,
yeah,
a little extra value.
Isaiah Pacheco, same thing. And when you look at DeAndre Swift, right, obviously I'm going to have Kenny Gainwell in basically every bottom of the barrel, that we see here. And I have Kenny Gainwell written in my notes here, which I need to do a better job of. Normally I would and share it. And I have Kenny Gainwell, the whole thing written out and in blue next to it. I wrote Swift love, right? What happens? What would happen if, in a game where Swift, God forbid, tweaks an ankle or tweaks a knee and he's done for the game and everything's okay. He's able to play the next week. Kenny Gainwell's going to come in and get a ton of looks and a ton of targets. And it's literally impossible, to talk like that, to say those kind of things. But that's why I always keep Kenny Gainwell on my notepad, in my radar, in somewhat of my MEE kind of, mind frame when I look at running backs here. And you said Breece Hall, Derrick Henry, most expensive player, first player listed. The next guy down, highlighted here, if I can get a good shot on the camera here, and we'll point right there, it's Breece Hall. He's highlighted here because, as you said, he is just an unbelievably good play in a GPP format because of the opposing defense. Denver, last time I checked, there's only 32 teams in the league. Denver's 32nd against opposing running backs. I had not heard what the head coach had to say, so I'm glad you said that. That even makes it even better for me. He's only 6'5" on FanDuel, 5'4" on DK, $21 on Yahoo. And as we go down the list, Miles Sanders is a guy who I just right before we started to broadcast here on Saturday morning, Dave, there is no more injury designation with Miles Sanders. He is a full go, right? And again, if we rewound this thing, and I talked about Jared Goff not having to do so much, and Carolina's and Detroit should win big, and Goff might not even play in the fourth quarter. Well, if that's the case, then Miles Sanders is going to get a ton of playing time. He's going to be carrying the ball. He's going to be catching the ball, and he's $6,100 on FanDuel. He's 5'2" on DK. And I'm just going to say this, and maybe we can edit this certain 10-second clip of me saying this. I still look at Miles Sanders as one of those stud running backs. If you were to give me a list of the top 5 running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, I would, Joe Mixon, you could throw in there. I would still put Miles Sanders in as a top 10 running back in the NFL. And maybe that's just me. I'm probably alone on that island, but I absolutely love Miles Sanders. And in this game and at that price tag, I think this guy sees a ton of work, and work and volume. Volume is always going to be king. That's what we say in the DFS world. So give me that. You love David Montgomery. I love Jamar Gibbs, Detroit versus Carolina. Carolina 29th overall. So let's look at it in my brain. This is what I'm thinking, right? Jared Goff, David Montgomery, they absolutely, hang 35 points on Carolina. It's the fourth quarter, right? They're going to sit some starters. Jamar Gibbs is going to get a ton of work in, and given his price tag, given the matchup, I could see Jamar Gibbs catching 5 or 6 passes. I could see him turning those catches into 75 to 80 yards. I could see Jamar Gibbs finding the end zone. Why, in what world can't we say David Montgomery scores twice and Jamar Gibbs scores one time? They can spread the love in Detroit. That's why they drafted Jamar Gibbs. That's why they traded for David Montgomery. And this is the perfect game for all this to happen here. So, and again, you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco. I love the guy, just too expensive for bottom of the barrel. Same thing with David Montgomery. Love the guy, too expensive for bottom of the barrel. So what's the next best option? Jerick McKinnon. Again, I've mentioned this guy every week, and he's made me look silly. He's made me look foolish. I mean, maybe I'm hanging on too firm to that beautiful playoff run of his. But again, KC to me is going to mop the floor with Minnesota. As a Lions fan, I'd love to see it. And realistically, Kansas City is going to hang a ton of points on Minnesota. And I could see a case where actually, I would not, it is actually going to happen. Jerick McKinnon this is going to be the game. I'm going to say it out loud. This is going to be the game where Jerick McKinnon starts to hit on all cylinders, right? Pacheco can still do his thing. Patrick Mahomes is still going to be a stud, but they're going to start working in McKinnon more. And this is the game that it's going to get Jerick McKinnon right. The coaching staff is going to call some plays. He's going to execute them perfectly. He's going to score a touchdown, and then boom, we're off and running, where Jerick McKinnon will be a viable, usable piece in the near future and for the rest of the season in DFS formats. Kenny Gainwell, I'll skip past him. Ramondre Stevenson to me is someone who is very intriguing. New England is playing New Orleans. New Orleans very tough up front against opposing running backs. Their defensive line is awesome, but Ramondre Stevenson to me is just a wrecking ball. He doesn't care. Like he's a wreck. He's a how can I put this without sounding weird? He's a wrecking ball that wears like ballerina slippers, right? He can run through a wall, but then he can tiptoe down the sideline and make it into the end zone. And when you look at his price tag, only 6-1 on FanDuel, 5-6 on DK, I'm willing to take the risk with Ramondre Stevenson because of what we saw last week with the ineptitude of Mac Jones, and we saw Bill Belichick. Oh my God, like Bill Belichick was pissed. Bill Belichick is not happy with what Mac Jones did last week. So to me, I could see a case where Bill Belichick just says, you know what, Mac, I don't know if he'd say this to him directly, but he's going to take the ball right out of Mac Jones' hands, and he's going to feed Ramondre Stevenson. And at that price tag, I love it, and eventually, we could see a case where Ramondre Stevenson is, in the first half is averaging like a putrid 3.2 yards a carry. And you're like, oh gosh, this sucks. This sucks. But as the game wears on, Ramondre Stevenson gets stronger and stronger. And by the end of it, you're looking at Ramondre Stevenson with 75 or 80 yards, and he's found the end zone. And given his price tag, that is beautiful value. One more guy. We said Derrick Henry playing the Colts. He's going to run wild. But at what time in this game does Taj Spears get in on the action? Right? He's already, to me, warranted, or he's already awarded himself at least 7 or 8 carries a game, regardless of what the score is. And when you look at his price tag, 4.7 on FanDuel, 4.8 on DK, and only $12 on Yahoo, let Derrick Henry do the heavy lifting. Let Derrick Henry put up 200 yards and score twice, and then let Spears come in the fourth quarter and just pound the ball, pound the ball, pound the ball, and Spears finds the end zone himself. Granted, but maybe he'll hang 35, 40 yards. But if he finds the end zone at $4,700 on FanDuel, that is absolutely lovely. So to me, I'm all over Hall, as you are, Miles Sanders, Jamar Gibbs, a little bit of McKinnon, and Spears. When we transition to the wide receivers here, Tyreek Hill, rightfully so, the most expensive player on FanDuel, at least. On DraftKings, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Jefferson is about $200 more than Tyreek Hill. But to me, Tyreek Hill, no brainer. In cash games, it's probably a must, but at a certain point, a price tag gets a little bit high. But to me, Tyreek Hill makes for an unbelievably great play. Of course, it's Tyreek Hill, and they're playing the Giants. So I will toss it to you. Where are you going with wide receivers in terms of cash games here, Dave?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's certain players that are just in play every single week in cash, assuming they're healthy, CMC, Travis Kelsey, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, just, kind of, a couple of guys off the top of my head where when they're healthy, they're kind of just an option, right? That's not necessarily where I'm going, at least to start off with here. So first guy I'm going to mention, Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds is looking like a cash lock for me right now. It does not seem that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to play. As of right now, he is doubtful, but it's trending in the wrong direction. Other than, a big fat 0 in week 3, when he was dealing with a groin injury for what it's worth, he's been very consistently putting up 6-7 targets a game, scored a couple of touchdowns as well. Along with St. Brown on the Lions, Reynolds is the only wide receiver to run a route on more than 17% of the snaps, and to have a higher snap share than 51%. And he's well above those. So, very clearly the wide receiver 2 when everyone's healthy. It looks like he might be the wide receiver, 1 here this week. Might have a hard time playing Montgomery and Reynolds together. If St. Brown ends up being out indeed, then I think that changes things a little bit. I think I could stomach Reynolds and Montgomery together, but if St. Brown does play, even in a limited fashion, I think I could only get to one of those guys. I am going to move along here relatively quick through these receivers, though, Chris. I have a bunch of them, and I don't want to spend too much time going into great detail here, but you know I'm a Michigan fan. And so Nico Collins is a guy that I have just been in on, ever since really early, even last year. He's had 3x on his salary in 3 of the 4, last 4 weeks, 2 games over 6x. I mean, that's more stuff we look at for MME purposes, but, I'll be damned if that's not awesome for cash as well. If you look at guys that you think can, get you 3x, and that's just how you were to simply build your player pool for cash, I think you're on the right track here. But, I mentioned with Bijan, I'll mention here again, I'm not a big fan of the game environment, but the production here has just kind of been too much to ignore. I've been rolling with Tank Dell to this point. I think it's Nico time for me here now. And believe it or not, he's 5th in the league in passing yards. So, well, I guess receiving yards, but you know what I'm saying. Adam Thielen, this guy again, right? Played him last week, priced up a little bit. But what do you expect? He's gone 3x, 5x, 8x on his salary here in the last 3 weeks. So I think now we can kind of put the worry aside, right? About Bryce Young. I know that's kind of what people were saying last week was, well, but Bryce Young is coming back. I don't know about Thielen. I locked him in, wasn't worried about it. He was locked in on Tuesday for me. Had 8 targets, caught 7 of them for 76 yards last week. So again, I think we can put that to bed. At least for right now, clear wide receiver 1 on that team. They're a team that most likely is going to have to be throwing the ball, to catch up or, to play with the Lions this week, I think. So I think that, he's interesting. Fun fact on Adam Thielen, he's the third oldest active wide receiver on an active roster right now. So, he's not young. If you want to go with the old guy crew, you could go Stafford, you could go Thielen, and, really max out your age.
There you go.
Now, flip side of the age, right? Michael Wilson very quickly moved himself up to the wide receiver too.
Come on, that's my guy. That's my territory. You're poaching my guys now. Geez,
I know, but
look at this. I have a whole sheet on Michael Wilson I was going to talk about, but
I know, but
I will give you the floor. Go ahead.
We need value in cash, and you're not going to like the guy I mentioned in 2 guys from now. Then, but this Joshua Dobbs offense in Carolina or with the Cardinals much better than we've expected. This guy's been a model of efficiency. 16 targets have resulted in 14 catches for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. Small sample size, but at this price, I think he's a smash play in cash. Fun fact on Michael Wilson, I'm hoping you don't got this one wrote down, but he's got the 5th best yards per separation on his targets this year. He's averaging 2.25 yards in separation per target. So he's getting very open. Speaking of Cardinals, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, he's very much in play here. I think he's probably a long shot to be in my cash lineup, but guy is, top 16 at the position. So league wide in snap share and air yards and target share. So, he's getting the ball and, he's getting a lot of air yards while he's doing it. Not very expensive, probably much more of an MME type play. But, absolutely could work. Let me know on this one if this is another one of your guys, and I'll make it quick on him. But Wan'Dale Robinson, ultimate salary saver this week. And I think he's probably more than just a punt play, though. Since he's been healthy here the last 2 weeks and in the lineup, 9 catches on 11 targets, only gone for 61 yards. But, the volume is what we like to see. Like I said before, if we can get 3X on a player, I think that you can consider them, a borderline smash play. When you can do it from a punt play, I think that makes it a real, smash play. So at his salary, it's not going to be that hard to 3X. He doesn't even have to do a whole lot. You do have to consider the Daniel Jones effect, but either way, going to be hard to kind of keep him out of the lineup when we want to play guys like Bijan. We want to play guys like Mahomes, right? We want to play guys like Justin Jefferson. Kind of buried JJ here a little bit, so, my bad. But any week he's healthy, like I said, he's a consideration in any format. He's been priced up, all season long. Continues to hit that value, though, right? Every week he's basically been good for 3X. That's what you want, right? If you're going to pay up for a guy, you would like for him to hit value. You don't want him to be, hit or miss, like a Mike Williams kind of thing. So he's expensive, but he's in, one of those 2 standout games that I mentioned. So, if you want to pay up for Justin Jefferson this week, by all means. Guy you're probably going to talk about, Tyler Boyd. I'll keep it pretty simple and just simply say,
actually not. I dug deeper than Tyler Boyd. Trenton Irwin. So have at it with Tyler Boyd. Go ahead.
Well, Tyler Boyd really for me is just T. Higgins is out. If you want to save some salary, go that way. You can do so. I probably wouldn't do that, but he's going to be the clear, second target behind Chase this week. He's probably going to be fairly highly owned in MME. So, probably would shy away from him, but I don't think I'd be doing my job if I didn't mention him. We got Josh Downs. I talked about, Anthony Richardson earlier going up against that Titans defense. So that's a good way to make this list, right? You're a wide receiver going up against the Titans. Well, hello, Josh Downs, right? Seeing 12 targets in week 3 was on a lot of people's radar last week as a salary saver. Didn't end up making my pool, but I think this matchup kind of dictates that with his salary savings that, you put him in there. And then I'm going to talk Josh Downs. I have to talk Michael Pittman, right? If Downs is in because of the matchup, you're damn right that Pittman's in, because of the matchup as well. Absolute clear alpha wide receiver 1 on this team. He had a pretty pitiful 1 catch for 15 yards on 5 targets last week, but Pittman, one of 7 receivers this year that has played every game and has a 20% target share. So, he's getting the target share in this offense. And then last guy I want to mention, just because I'll explain here why, but Devontae Smith. Again, I don't force correlation in cash lineups, but if you're playing Hurts, Smith looks really nice alongside of him. But there's two reasons that he's here. Number one, big surprise, he's in one of the two standout games of the week that I just keep talking about over and over again. Number two, he absolutely obliterates zone coverage. AJ Brown is the man coverage killer. Devontae Smith is the zone coverage killer. We saw AJ Brown go ballistic last week. I think that it's Devontae Smith's time here. So again, probably more of an MME type play, but I really feel that he's going to have a huge game on Sunday tomorrow. So even though I don't necessarily think I can find a way to get him in my cash lineups, I wanted to throw him out there so that hopefully I'll be doing a victory lap in a couple of days, Chris.
Yeah, and once again, I had I think I mentioned it early in the broadcast when we were talking Rams and Stafford, but I have Philadelphia to score 35 points, so more than likely Devonta Smith will be in on at least one touchdown.
Yeah.
Again, it's
big
one of those
big game.
Again, it's one of those things where you look at Philadelphia and their offense and their quarterback and Jalen Hurts, and we're allowed to say what we want. Why can't it be AJ Brown scores twice? Why can't Devonta Smith score twice? This stuff can happen. Will it happen? We don't know, but I'm allowed to say that it could happen, right? That's last time I checked, we live in America. We're allowed to talk like that. So when I look at my wide receivers, if you're done, I
know I like 47 wide receivers. I told you there's a lot this week. There's so many guys that I think are good plays, and you wouldn't think that on a much smaller slate, but I even tried a couple hours ago to kind of trim that list down a little bit, and there wasn't a player on there that I felt like I could take off and be doing, the people that rely on us for information justice by doing so. So I just had to.
And I messaged Joe Bond, the owner here, the head cheese. I messaged him yesterday, and I even sent out a tweet. Normally, the bottom of the barrel wide receiver article is out on Wednesday, but I had so many. I had 38 wide receivers I had written at my notebook, and I just that would have taken me 3 days to put together an article of 38 wide receivers. So I trimmed it down to I think 21 or 22, and it was published. I believe it was published Thursday morning. No, excuse me, it was published Friday morning, really early Friday morning, because
6:30, I think, right?
I had so many wide receivers to talk about, and I hate, and especially as a DFS writer, aside from the action, really quick, I've had a lot of folks DM me and say, I'm an up and coming DF. I want to be a DFS writer. Do you have any advice? Do you have any of this and that? And one of the things I tell them is when I sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and I write player names down, rarely do I cut them out of the article. Right. Because if I have that initial gut feeling to write them down on a piece of paper, I'm going to put them in an article, because I've done that before early in my career, where I've cut out 4 or 5 guys, and 3 of the 4 of the guys that I've cut out had, 200 yards, and it made me sick. It made me sick to my stomach, and not a lot of good it does. People don't trust you when you go, oh, well, I promise you, I was going to write that guy in my article, you call bullshit. Well, no shit. No, well, of course, it's easy for you to say you were going to talk about him now when he went off. So I don't omit much anymore, because I don't want to be the guy that does, oh, well, you know what? I was going to mention him, but I didn't. Yeah, right. You're a liar, and we go from there. When you look at my wide receivers this week, I love to look at DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee's playing the Colts again. Colts 24th overall against opposing wide receivers, and DeAndre Hopkins, people are saying he's past his prime. If I'm not mistaken, he's 31, and they say your prime age is like 28 to 29, and DeAndre Hopkins still can make contested catches. DeAndre Hopkins is still a stud wide receiver in my book, and we know what he said about all these other teams passing on him. He's going to make them pay, and he He's 6'1" on FanDuel, 5'7" on DK, and I absolutely love DeAndre Hopkins this week. And that, to me, there's no way around it. I'm going to have 100% exposure to DeAndre Hopkins, and in MME and in big GPPs, 100% exposures can kind of, sink your ship, right? But to me, if I feel so strongly about a guy, then I'm going to go all in. And if I'm on that sinking ship, then at least I went down knowing that in my heart of hearts, I did the right thing in terms of what I like to do. When I go down, Alan Lazard is another guy. Again, a game, the Jets in the Denver game. Alan Lazard, Denver, they stink against wide receivers. Alan Lazard, 5'9" on FanDuel, only 3'9" on DK. I remember last week I went on to this spiel about, Zach Wilson has no loyalty to Alan Lazard. He has no loyalty to get Lazard the football. Lazard was an Aaron Rodgers call, right? Aaron Rodgers brought in all his friends, Cobb and Lazard, and Zach Wilson is like, well, I don't give a shit about these guys. They're not my guys. They were your guys, and you're not playing anymore. But when you look at the way I spoke about this already, but if Zach Wilson is going to take little steps or big leaps, he's going to have to start to utilize guys like Alan Lazard. And as I told you at the beginning of the show, I watched Zach Wilson looking at his reads and making good plays, making good decisions. And he did hit Alan Lazard a few times for, if I'm not mistaken, a chunk play or two. So to me, why would that not carry over again to this week? So to me, Alan Lazard makes for a beautiful GPP play. So does Zay Flowers, the rookie. Baltimore's playing Pittsburgh, and these two teams they absolutely hate each other. I would say we should make a poll after this broadcast is over. Which rivalry is the worst? Is it the Packers and the Bears? Is it Green Bay and Detroit? I think it's Baltimore and Pittsburgh. These two teams would if you would give them weapons on the field, they would absolutely hurt and kill each other, right? And Pittsburgh right now, 30th overall against opposing wide receivers. And Lamar Jackson, don't look now, but Lamar Jackson is starting to dig back into that MVP kind of quarterback play. And when you look at Zay Flowers, 5'9" on FanDuel, that is absurd to me. He's 5'5" on DraftKings. And when I look at the final score, I've made no secret. Everything I do when it comes to DFS, the first move I make is I look at the Vegas totals and all that stuff. And I have Baltimore to absolutely shellac Pittsburgh. And I have Baltimore scoring at least 28 points in this game. The over-under is at 38, which is kind of on the low.
It's real low.
It's on the low side, and I think Baltimore can carry the over-under by themselves here. So Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, to me, but book it right now. Zay Flowers will score a touchdown. So right now, if you're playing along at home, write this down. Zay Flowers, anytime touchdown. David Montgomery, anytime touchdown. And who else did we? 2 touchdowns, and Isaiah Pachenko with a touchdown as well. So far we got a good parlay cooking.
Yeah, parlay cooking.
Yeah, we got a great parlay cooking. Darius Slayton on the radar, Jordan Addison on the radar. He was held without a catch last week. I don't think he's a rookie. That kind of thing is going to happen. But the coaching staff, they're playing Kansas City, Minnesota, going to be playing from behind. They're going to be throwing the ball. Jordan Addison.
He's in one of those 2 games, Chris. One of those 2 games I keep talking about.
Exactly. And so why would you pass up on him? Tutu Atwell. Again, Stafford, Tutu Atwell. And Atwell is that guy that makes those splash plays, those 45, 50-yard plays. And that was Tutu that tippy-toed and touched the pylon. That was a touchdown, but they called it back. They said his heel was that was bullshit. But Tutu Atwell, to me, is a guy that needs to be on our radar. Again, they're playing Philly, but again, Philly 27th overall in defending opposing wide receivers. And Stafford is a grizzled veteran. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He can make tight throws. He can get Tutu Atwell the football. So, I mean, Tutu Atwell, you'll love to see that. Michael Wilson, I'll say that again. I know you touched on him. He's dirt cheap as well. Sky Moore, Kendrick Bourne. I'm going to go back to Nick Westbrook-Akeen again.
Yeah.
And one more guy I want to mention here, and this is going to be crazy, the white guy, Braxton Berrios in
I
Miami.
love it. Love it.
Miami's playing the Giants. I know that's just ingrained to give the DVP and all that and stuff. But, you know, Tyreek Hill's going to get his. Jalen Waddle is going to get his. And Braxton Berrios isn't going to break slates, but he's going to catch 4 or 5 passes for 45 or 50 yards. And once in a while, he'll catch a touchdown. And if this is the week, given his price tag on DraftKings, he's only $3,600. So to me, Braxton Berrios in a GPP is an unbelievable move, and I'm going to add him into my parlay, into my anytime touchdown parlay,
well, that's a big one,
and see what we get. And you mentioned Josh Reynolds for the Lions. I think Khalif Raymond. I think they can both coexist. Khalif Raymond does a lot of good things. He's just a good football player. He does all those things that don't show up in the box score. He's a great football player. We love having him here in the city of Detroit. And last but not least, Trenton Irwin. Cincinnati's playing Arizona. All this hoopla, all this nonsense, all these people making up. Jamar Chase wants to leave. Joe Burrow's calf it's fallen off. They cut it off. They're going to implant a new calf. Who knows what's going on? But to me, Tyler Boyd is a beautiful call. To be fair, I would prefer Tyler Boyd, but I knew you were going to say Tyler Boyd, so I said, you know what, I'm going to try and one up him with Trenton Irwin, and he is. I got to look at my small writing. He's like under $3,000 on DraftKings, and when you look at what I have him for projections, I have Trenton Irwin at like 5 or 6 targets, 3 to 4 receptions. I think Trenton Irwin gets to like the 45 to 50 yard mark in terms of catching passes and yardage here. And if this kid happens to find the end zone, oh baby, are we in the money? So, I mean, again, as I told you, you mentioned it first. I seconded it. I had 38 wide receivers that I could talk about, and I did my best, to give you, what I'd like. And again, I will share my bottom of the barrel notes this week, which I haven't done yet this season, and you can see it all for yourself. So we're at the 55-minute mark, and we still have tight ends and DSTs to do. So per usual, let me give you the most expensive tight end. We know who it is. It's Travis Kelce, and we can move on. Where are you going in cash games for tight end this week, Dave?
Can I throw some fuel onto the Khalif Raymond hype?
Absolutely.
So, assuming that Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, Khalif Raymond is the direct replacement in the slot for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, I honestly don't think that it's crazy at all. And if the parlay wasn't so big, I would say, man, you want to really add some value? Put Khalif Raymond in that anytime touchdown parlay. I mean, I hate to sit there and, make it 6, 7, 8 players long. But
why
man,
not? We'll put $1 on it, win 10 grand. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell the listeners or the viewers, right? While you're talking tight ends, I'm going to write the parlay out as you're talking tight ends.
Yeah. All right. So let's hop into the tight ends here real quick. And I've only got a couple of names here because usually I don't have a lot of tight ends. But I will say this here. Listen, this goes for anyone. If you want to call me a liar, go right ahead, right? I just ask that you make sure they'll have the balls to say it to my face. All offseason, Chris, all I've been talking about is, hey, man, we punt at the tight end position, right? The tight end position is a place where we punt. You know what I don't do? I don't pay up for mid-price tight ends either. It rarely happens. If they're not dating Taylor Swift, they don't have a chance to be in my lineup. Then in week 3 and in week 4, what I do, Chris? I played a mid-price tight end. Neither time it worked out for me. Week 3, I played Zach Ertz. He's a dickhead, so that didn't work out. Week 4, I played Pat Freiermuth. He gave me a couple of the birds and said, kiss my ass, Dave. I'm going to get injured early in the game. So clearly, I've learned my lesson, correct? Incorrect, Chris. Enter Mark Andrews, criminally underpriced on DraftKings. I honestly am finding it next to impossible not to put him in my lineup this week. So, like I said, you can feel free. Call me dirty. Call me stinky. Call me rotten. You can call me an ugly liar. I just ask that you do it to my face, Chris. we'll talk about Travis Kelce as well. I mentioned earlier, when Travis Kelce is healthy, he is, worthy of consideration. I've said this, I think, 2 of the last 3 weeks. I'm going to say it again. If I'm going to pay up for a tight end, I have 2 rules. They have to meet at least one of the criteria. First criteria, they have to be Dayton Taylor Swift. Give Travis Kelce a check mark. Number 2, they have to be in a complete smash spot. Give Travis Kelce 2 check marks. He only needs 1. He's got 2. So, world's first. Somebody's ever met 2 of those criteria. Zach Ertz, man, he's on the list again, Chris. I don't know what to do. Here we go again. 24.8% target share, tied with Kelce for the highest at the tight end position. That's arguably the most important stat that you really need to know. I'll take it a step further. 4th in the league with 5 targets in the red zone. That's not just, that's money time, right? Like we need him to score a touchdown there. But you know what? He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So he's getting a lot of red zone targets, hasn't materialized into a touchdown quite yet. The only real knock I can put on him, unfortunately, his route run and his snap share percentage are actually both outside of the top 15 at the position. But it's, the volume is just there. I don't know that I'll let him hurt me again this week because I think Andrews is there to save me, but I can see playing Zach Ertz. And then I wouldn't be doing, anyone a favor here if I did not mention a punt tight end, since that's what I preach, but apparently I don't follow my own advice. I present you with Jonnu Smith. Again, if we've been listening to me, I don't like the game environment here. I most certainly would not play Bijan and Jonnu together in cash, but believe it or not, I think you could very clearly make an argument that Jonnu Smith has established himself as the 3rd option in that Atlanta passing game behind London and behind Bijan, ahead of fellow tight end Kyle Pitts. Now, on the season, Pitts has 1 more target, but Smith has 4 more catches and he has 58 more yards.
What happened to Pitts?
I don't know, man.
I can't understand. It's nuts.
Jonnu comes over comes over from, playing with Arthur Smith, in Tennessee at this price tag. And the fact that I think we're going to see him continue to get, these 6 targets a game that he's seen basically so far this year, I think he's absolutely cash viable. It's ugly, but if you don't want to pay up a tight end, I don't hate Jonnu.
No, I'm with you. I added him in one of my seasonal fantasy leagues for $1. Nobody even, and it's crazy. And I'm going to put him right in one of my flex spots. When I look at tight end, right, Jonnu Smith stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, he's dirt cheap. It's crazy. Houston 25th overall against tight ends. I'm going back to Hayden Hurst, Dalton Schultz, Tyler Conklin, again, another Jet at Denver kind of guy. He's 4.8 on FanDuel, 3.2 on DraftKings. We've seen Tyler Conklin have stretches like this before, even back when he was with Minnesota, where he'll go on like a 2 to 3 touchdown catching streak. And I think we're in the midst of one right now. Did Tyler Conklin scored a touchdown last week, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Is that easily found? I don't. I'm almost certain he did. Actually, to be fair, I don't know if he did at all, but I'm saying he did to prove so my narrative holds true. So
Tyler Conklin did not score a touchdown.
Did not. Okay, so the Tyler Conklin, touchdown stretch run will start this week in Denver. Denver. I don't know. Sean Payton, what the heck? They made all these trades for Sean Payton, and it's just not working out. I'm going to go back to Chig again. Tennessee is playing Indianapolis. We've mentioned a ton of Tennessee players. And again, when you look at any football team that has not even a stud running back, just a manageable, good running backs, right? Teams stack the box. They know they got to stop the running back. And especially if it's Derrick Henry, right? You're going to have that extra guy that you kind of want to, like a nickel cornerback, a guy that you want to spy that could hang back just in case. Even he's up on the pile, when it looks to be a run play. But in the red zone, in a high upside target kind of situation, if Tennessee makes it inside the red zone, kind of, granted, expected, more than likely Derrick Henry will score the touchdown. But if not, I could see a case where Chig is the guy who scores the touchdown because everybody is up on the line of scrimmage because they know Derrick Henry's going to get the football. But it could be one of those whoop kind of things where Chig just is untouched and he goes into the corner of the end zone. They fake it and boom, Chig scores a touchdown. He's
Henry might even throw it to him. He threw a touchdown pass earlier.
Yeah, that's another that we could. I don't even know if you could make
little
that
jump
bet.
pass.
Yeah. I'd have to go back down to 8 Mile and Kelly. There's a guy in an alley. There's a guy in an alley I can make bets with, and I'll make that bet with them. And then the last but not least, I'll give you one more tight end because we can get into some DSTs because there are some juicy ones this week. We're at over an hour, only 3 minutes over an hour already, and that's Kylan Granson. He kind of showed up last week. It was nice. He was a waiver wire darling again. Another reason why there is direct correlation, as I've said a million times, between DFS and the next week's crop of waiver wire ads in seasonal formats. We mentioned Chig last week. We mentioned Granson last week. And look, they were waiver wire ads this week. So when you look at Granson, Tennessee right now, 4th overall against opposing, defending opposing tight ends. But Tennessee's going to have, a lot on their plate in terms of looking at Tennessee. You mentioned it yourself, the wide receivers, they're going to have trouble covering the wide receivers. So I could see Granson, who basically is built like a wide receiver anyways, so why can't he kind of sneak free? And again, these guys don't, I keep talking about these tight ends like they need to, like they're all going to score touchdowns. They don't need to score touchdowns at 4-6 on FanDuel and an even $3,000 on DraftKings. We 40-50 yards, it's all we need, and even that is 3-4 times the value. So to me, Granson, given his price tag, he needs 3-4 catches for 30-40 yards, and that's 2-3 times the value. So to me, Chig, Granson, Conklin will start his touchdown, his 2 to 3 touchdown game streak here, and that's what I got for tight ends. I did write Kyle Pitts just because it's like, when is it ever going to happen? I'll ask you, do you think Kyle Pitts ever breaks out? Because if you look at any of the blurbs across the board at all these other websites, it always ends in if and when the breakout happens. If it hasn't happened yet, when is it going to happen? When is he going to be 30 years old when this thing happens? And when he was drafted, he was like 20 years old, and he hasn't done a thing yet. But again, Atlanta's playing Houston at the 25th overall against defending opposing tight ends. But I just don't think Ritter is capable of supporting, multiple offensive skill positional players. But to me, Kyle Pitts should be in that one, or it should be Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. And it's not even in that order. It's Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts are at the bottom. I mean, they're targeting Mac Hollins more than they are Kyle Pitts. So what the F is going on in Atlanta? To be fair, I don't really care.
You want a little bit of Kyle Granson fuel?
Yeah. Should we add him to the parlay?
No, I don't. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't go there necessarily. But I will say this: he's 3rd on that team in targets.
I'm going to add him. So that would be Kyle Granson would be the 9th leg on the touchdown parlay. So $1. I'm going to work this out after the broadcast. So I'm going to work this out, and I'm going to say, just by looking at it, $1 would probably net us like 10 grand. I'm not kidding.
Oh, with that, what are we at? 7, 8 plays? How many are we at now?
Well, if we add in Granson, that would be 9. That would be 9 leg. That would be a 9 leg touchdown parlay.
That's probably pushing more like 25K, but
before a dollar, with the
that's what I'm saying, for $1. Let's talk defense here real quick and round this out. You know how I feel about defense and cash. Pretty much just looking to spend as little as possible. I don't think I know that salary doesn't correlate to production. So, I'm looking at 4 teams right now. I probably actually have it narrowed down to 3. And if we're being honest, I probably have it really, really narrowed down to 2. But I'm looking at the Titans. I'm looking at the Patriots, Cardinals, Steelers. Steelers are probably the odd man out, but I think they're an option. My initial lean early in the week was Arizona. just because of the matchup against Cincinnati, which if I'd have told you that 6 weeks ago, you would have probably had me drug tested, but here we are.
Just do it anyways.
Yeah, Tennessee and New England. Those are the two that I'm really looking at. New England's a little bit more expensive than I like to pay at defense, but depending on how the roster shakes out, if I've got the money to afford them, they're my preferred option over Tennessee. But Tennessee, it's kind of who I keep getting myself to.
Yeah, you like Tennessee. I love the Saints. The New Orleans is playing New England. You said you like New England, but I would prefer New Orleans because again, Mac Jones is going to be their starting quarterback. And when you looked last week, he literally he single-handedly gave who'd they play? Dallas, right? New England played Dallas last
I
week.
think, yeah, pretty sure.
He single-handedly gave Dallas 2 touchdowns, and yet Bill Belichick still tried it. He threw a pick 6, and then he had that fumble inside the 20 that Van Der Esch ran back. So to me, it's got to be it's got to be the New Orleans Saints because again, a guy like just off the top of my head, a guy like Marshawn Lattimore is a ball hawk. Granted, he's been in and out of been hurt and but he is healthy again. And I could make a case. I could add Marshawn Lattimore to our parlay. That would be the 10th leg, and it would be a defensive touchdown.
A Saints touchdown, boy. Now we're talking 150 grand.
Yeah. I'm gonna write it down. I won't necessarily book it, but I'll write it down and see what we get. But to me, I'm all about the New Orleans Saints DST, and on FanDuel they're only $4,000. And again, as you said, Arizona Cardinals are. To be fair, Arizona it is and was my first one, but I know you love them, so I can give you the Cardinals, and I'll take the New Orleans Saints to score at least one defensive touchdown, especially if Mac Jones is going to be their starting quarterback, and they're playing in New England. So if Mac Jones just hands the Saints the football and they score a defensive touchdown, Bailey Zappi is going to be in this game, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. But yeah, with defense, to me, it's always a punt. So that's why I probably won't get up to New England because I'm just going to prioritize every other position, and especially since I'm probably paying up for Andrews, to pay up at tight end and defense in the same week. That would take that would take a miracle of salary, which I don't think that we have. Maybe Jaleel McLaughlin becomes cash viable. Then I guess maybe that's an option, but probably not, Chris.
Yeah. And I just not to stop your thought there. I just have a feeling, and I mean, if I'm wrong, I'll gladly admit it. But there's just something about this Jaleel guy that I think that people are going to flock to him in DFS formats, and they're going to get skunked. I'm not. So to me personally, McLaughlin's not going to be anywhere near my lineups, even though I love the Denver Jets game.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's going to skunk people. He's going to get, what 2, maybe 3 FanDuel points. And that's just my opinion. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This time next week, I'll apologize to people. But to me, it's fool's gold. I can't put my finger on it yet, but when I do, I'll send a tweet out about it. But to me, McLaughlin is just reminds me of Sarah McLaughlin and the commercials about the sick and animals that arms of an angel commercial and all that. So we've gone long enough. We're talking about Sarah McLaughlin animal abuse commercials now, Dave.
Yeah,
so
hey man, it's a wide ranging show, Chris. We're
it's entertaining, right? I mean, I would be entertained if I'm watching this. Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll do our favorite Sarah McLaughlin song. I'll have Brayden come in and he can sing the chorus of whatever. So
to be fair, Dave, what we're doing here, not only this week, but even the previous weeks and what we are going to do in the future, I would watch this show over realistically any other show on earth because it is, it's not like, it's not like we're Howard Stern, like what, we're going to say something weird or bring in a girl with her top off or do something crazy and outlandish, but we're honestly throwing around ideas and terms and players and stats, and we're having some fun while we're doing it. And to me, that's all I've ever wanted to do when I broadcast. Just be myself with another individual, have some fun, give away some great information. People will take it in. We get good feedback, and we move on. That this show to me is what I was born to do, is to play DFS, to write, and to broadcast. So I thank you for being along this journey with me. I love recording the show every Saturday, or doing this show live, excuse me, every Saturday morning.
And to be fair, I did talk about Isaiah Pacheco keystering a shank earlier, so
Yes.
it gets off the rails. But with that being said, we will be back Sunday live at noon. Fancy Six Pack Channel, where the dessert we've been called of the show get you rocking and rolling with the most up to date information here, right as lock comes on. So you obviously know where to find us. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, 10-leg parlay. I'll make sure to get the screenshot out as soon as possible. Later.